Chain goes.
Wow.
So, Austin, you've got more details on this than I probably do, but the long story short, the setup for this is that when the Xbox One launched, there was a deal struck between Machinima and Microsoft.
It was in 2013.
2013 that, again, I'm just going to paraphrase here and we can fill in the details later, that said, hey, we, Machinima, will produce with our roster of YouTube talent videos for you, Microsoft, about the Xbox One launch and the launch titles, and Machinima apparently mandating to those YouTube producers that you cannot say anything negative. There was no accountability on those YouTube channel producers' part of saying, hey, we were paid to do this, or disclaimer, hey, Microsoft, this is part of a Microsoft thing. They just kind of went on under the pretense that we are consumers and we really like this product.
Yeah, right. The double hinky thing was that they were not disclosing the nature of that, and also these videos were apparently being billed as like reviews.
Okay, right. So then FTC comes in very recently, ruling on this, or the ruling on this.
Yeah, so they started the case in 2014, but the ruling came through, or the settlement
came through. So that means nobody's guilty,
right?
But there's a settlement saying that Machinima basically paying, or I don't even know what the terms of the settlement are.
Basically, they can never
settle. No one's paying.
Yeah. The only thing that's been determined is that they can never do anything like this ever again.
If now that this settlement has happened, if they then go on to continue doing it, then fines come in.
So this settlement was actually just a real settlement? Like it wasn't
It was the U.S. government saying, motherfuckers, don't do this anymore.
Here's what you have to do,
there was a oversight they have to have, Machinima has to have over their content producers of 90 days if a video goes up to make sure everything's square.
Gotcha.
They have to do disclosure if something like this happens again. And the possible civil suit fine stuff, I'm not 100% sure how that comes in, but it's a possible $16,000 fine, I would believe, per infraction if this were to come up again.
Gotcha, basically.
So
also, to be clear, the money exchange for this was like they paid one YouTuber $15,000 for doing 2 videos. They paid another one $30,000 for doing a video.
Yeah, there was quite a bit of money.
There were 300 videos total as part of this program, and like the maximum you could make. So it was like that was the first phase. The second phase was like, listen, a bunch of you can do this, and we'll pay you $1 per 1,000 views,
something like
up to $25,000.
Okay.
So I forget exactly what the numbers are.
Those are the numbers.
And then the part of Microsoft that has, I don't know if this has been gleaned from the articles or the information. It's public information. A lot of this stuff. Is that they basically were approached. This is what I've read, or maybe this could be scuttlebutt. By Machinima, and didn't approach Machinima to do this. So that Machinima said, we can do this thing for you. And they were like, cool, that sounds cool. Like, let's draw this up. So Microsoft, not in this settlement, not really.
They're not culpable in this, but
the letter that the FTC wrote to Microsoft said, like, hey, this looks like this stuff happened despite the fact that you have safeguards in place, safeguards which have been improved since this advertising stuff went through. So, hey, keep doing that.
Just keep an eye on this shit.
Right.
So some of these details could be wrong. I don't want to say that. I don't have the actual case in front of me. I am no lawyer. I did not work on this case. Full disclosure. I was not given this case for free.
But we do work in media, and we work for companies that have certainly done things like, paid content in various forms.
For sure. And this is a really, there's a couple of things going on here. One is the obvious, right? Video games and the confluence of editorial and consumer and enthusiast is all kind of mushing together, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Has been for years.
And it can get very confusing out there, on both sides. Are people in editorial being too liberal and being kind of swinging towards consumer and enthusiast? Are enthusiasts kind of putting on airs that they're pure editorial? Right. So it's confusing out there. Anybody with a YouTube channel can get out there, say, hold up a copy of Call of Duty and say, this is the shit.
Yeah.
You guys have followed me for years. This is the one. And if you don't know if that person has received money to pay that, it can be a very confusing landscape.
And YouTube especially has muddied the waters on this a whole lot, because it is kind of just like fucking wild and woolly out there. It's like maybe a bunch of these people work for certain networks or have contracts with certain networks, but at the same time, it's just, you can say whatever the hell you want on those platforms, and it's like there's not a whole lot of people really out there trying to keep an eye on like whether what you're saying makes sense or if it's something that like might have been part of a deal.
So that's a big conversation to have. And just some of the other small parts of this that are interesting. One is you see a lot of this stuff centered around video games. You see a lot of this current technology kind of walls that we're breaking through, both legally and kind of advances in the stuff, kind of crawl back to video games in a weird way. I think that's really interesting.
Well, I think it's because it's the medium that lends itself to that kind of consumption.
That kind of commentary and that kind of presentation.
Yeah, it's most accessible. I think it's the most popular medium that's accessible in this.
Well, it has lots of edge
arena.
cases too, which and edge cases help you work out what the boundaries of everything are. So, for instance, there are sorts of rules for this. For like, if you're reviewing baby blankets on YouTube, you also have to disclose if you got that baby blanket for free and if they're paying you and blah blah blah. But you can't do a 4-hour long Let's Play of a baby blanket. Okay,
you could.
People do that.
Yeah.
You should subscribe to my channel on YouTube where I'm doing 4-hour.
This feels like one of the YouTube holes Jeff Gerstmann would have fallen down by now.
ASMR blanket.
Yeah.
So I don't mean, my other point would be that we'll stick on this for a second, but my other point being that this stuff has been around for other stuff.
Sure.
And it's not just video games. You had the FTC coming down on the mommy bloggers, or kind of spawning.
Just like commercial bloggers in general. Just like, hey, who is, if you get that baby blanket, if you get that blender, are you disclosing that you got it for free?
Well, and you go even further back, like Radio Payola.
Yes,
of course.
But specifically in the kind of modern day of YouTube, with this as an example, when did the FTC come down and say you need disclosure?
It was like 2009. They came back and said, hey, no, like there are lots of bloggers out there who are not disclosing that they have relationships. It's also like very vague terminology, and I don't even mean that as a critique necessarily, because like it has to be vague. But like if you have a connection to the publisher of something or the producer of something, then
even that.
Yeah, and like, what's that connection? And they're like, listen, a connection can be a bunch of things. A connection could be a good steak dinner. There's a huge track. That's where I got the kind of Let's Play example from, where they say like, listen, a Let's Play is different than a product review. You can't just say up front at the beginning of your 4-hour stream that you got this game for free and that you are getting paid $100. Like, you have to repeat that, or you should repeat that. It's in your best interest if. They're also very careful about like not phrasing things like it's law, because it isn't.
Right.
It's just like
recommendations.
Yeah, it's like best recommendation to retain your credibility. If you're being paid to do a stream for and you're doing it, make sure you tell people that over and over for that whole stream.
And that FTC fact is surprisingly relevant. Considering that it's a governmental agency being like, here's how the internet
Good for them.
Yeah, they have like very specific cases uses that make me feel like they know exactly what's happening.
It's almost like they've gotten a bunch of complaints about this before in various avenues. Also, hey, remember bloggers? Remember that shit?
No, remember vloggers. So, all right. So so that being said, I didn't want people to think that just video games had this problem.
Totally.
It's actually been around.
But I do feel like we're kind of at the forefront of this bullshit.
Well, video games just seem to me to be for as kind of obviously not people in this room, not people listening to this podcast, looked at it as this kind of like thing that happens that kids play, right? Like obviously we're not that group. It's big enough that I feel like it's setting precedents for the way we communicate, interact, and do a lot of things that like should not be ignored and should not be dismissed or minimalized as video games, because like it's really leading like a lot of this. I mean, look at like YouTube just started their gaming channel.
Yep.
Like they don't have any other specific channel. Like they have a gaming streaming portion of their business now, and that's pretty big.
And now we've got Jimmy Kimmel going up and talking about how watching people play video games is weird, and then getting avalanches of people very mad at him about that. It's pierced the public consciousness in such a way that like it is being talked about outside of our weird little circles.
Yeah, and I just think like technologically and what's the adjective for lawly. Legally, yes. Okay,
that's there.
Lawful,
that's the one.
Is lawful the word you're looking for?
Legally, or like pushing these technological and legal boundaries. Lawfulness. It's chaotic neutral. It's
lawfully-ality.
And I think that's really interesting. And as a producer of this stuff, like I feel like anybody who's tried to record and do this stuff in the video game space has known for years that like streaming video games has required technology that doesn't exist off the shelf. Now it is starting to get there. Avermedia and Elgato's,
and
but
there's business models built around it getting.
But those are specific products, and it's interesting that they had to be built. It's not just
for gaming,
and all of that stuff comes together in a really interesting way that makes gaming. What I'm trying to say is the herald of the apocalypse.
Totally.
No, it's moving,
driving the forefront of technology.
It's moving a lot
PewDiePie
of
sounding the first trumpet.
It's moving a lot of this stuff forward, and my fear is that a lot of people in government dismiss it and don't have a great understanding of it, and that makes me a little afraid.
Here's the thing. There's the thing that's like it's lots of people in government definitely don't get it. That's 100% true. There are definitely lots of people at the higher echelons of, especially in like the legislature, and that like what I don't understand what video game culture is. But it seems like that the people at the FTC are the sorts of people who are like, yeah, no, we get it. We know what a let's play is, homie. Like,
well, I feel like the
that's our
FTC,
job.
of all the aspects of government that would have to be at the forefront of this stuff, I think the FTC would have to be, because so much of consumer culture and so much of what is done in consumer culture is done over the internet now. So it's like, if you don't learn the rules and you don't learn like the nature of what's going on there, you have no fucking hope of policing any of that.
And it's always interesting to me when the kind of fangs come out in the government when money gets involved versus the kind of scare tactics when it's like, protect the kids from the whatever.
Well, this is a very different thing.
And then it's like, no, I'm the FTC. Let's look into this. All right, let's actually get a team together. What's going on here?
Like, I got paid $30,000 to say
what the hell? Did you get taxed on that? What's going on here?
They're begging to be relevant, man. That's part of it.
All right, so let's back up again and let's just talk a little bit here about some of this mixture of editorial stuff. I mean, we're all in a position to actually talk about this.
We are.
Like Alex said, there have been, I will not point fingers or cast stones at anybody because this is a very complex issue. Throughout the, let's say, 10 years, close to 10 years I've been doing this, there's been all sorts of stuff. I've seen quid pro quo stuff. I've never seen money. I'll say off the bat, I've never seen money change hands for a review score. Like, that's not a thing I'm talking about.
In other words, you've never seen a reviewer get money to change a score.
I've never seen it.
Every game reviewer I know is broke as shit.
Yes.
And I've never seen, I personally have never seen anybody, at least consciously, that has been influenced by, personally, I've never seen, been influenced by a publisher or developer to give something a certain score. So I am not talking about that.
Sure.
Okay.
I have seen stuff that is more like, hey, you're going to run this exclusive. Okay, can you promote it for the weekend or something like that? Right. Okay, we're going to give you this reveal. Can you promote it? Just keep it in.
I mean, that's just
page. Keep it on the top.
That's just basic, entertainment coverage. Like that's how that shit works.
Sure.
It's like, we give you this access. You're going to promote this way.
It always gets a little weird in terms of like that stuff is usually either at the very least mildly apathetic to overly positive. Right. You never see something that gets exclusive reveal be like, this was shit.
Well, I mean, if anything, I would say in games, it's more often, I mean, you don't see it a lot, but it's more often that you see negative than you would say like something that got an EW cover, something like that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I can only speak to video. I haven't
worked talking about coverage. You're talking about like, it'll be promoted all week. You don't mean there's not ads running. You're talking about like, Right,
we're not talking about advert content. We're talking about like previews and hands-ons and like exclusive trailers, that kind of shit.
Destiny DLC.
Basically, the artillery that was used during the IGN GameSpot wars the entire time I was there, like that was the shit they were flinging back and forth. It's like, what exclusives can we get?
Yeah, and usually that exclusive stuff means like, hey, you're going to run this. They call it like the top slot or the front page, and you put it up in a special promotion. Like that stuff, I don't know if that's how much. It's not really malice or anything there, and it's not. I don't think it's on the same range of payola stuff. And then there's
not, but it is complicated in the sense that like, are you keeping it there because you think this is the best content for your viewers right now?
That's where it gets
complicated.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
and ideally, you're not making those deals unless you think that it is. But sometimes,
well, that deal is made because you have the interest of your audience in mind, where you.
Presumably, yes.
Presumably, where you're like, man, we ourselves are interested in this. We know our readers are interested in this. I hate to say like it's a win-win, but like that's kind of how it's written.
That's the idea behind it,
right.
And like presumably, it's content that you'd want to promote.
Right,
it's a big
that
exclusive.
You would anyway.
Sometimes that stuff isn't, but whatever. So, and then I've seen other stuff that rolls down into like, marketing made this deal with company X. As part of the deal, can you guys do a special one-off piece of content for them, right? Can you guys do video or write an article or something like that? And that starts getting to where like, we probably wouldn't do this,
right.
But you assholes sold this thing. And that's where it gets a little stickier. And I think that's where the disclosures part really starts coming in.
Yeah.
And,
and I think that's kind of what we're in the thick of now. Like, I think it should be said, we have never been, if we've ever been offered something like that, it's never come to fruition. And I think that's partially because Jeff
Giant
is so,
bomb.
Yeah, giant bomb.
Yeah.
Jeff has been so vehemently opposed to the idea of like native ad content and that kind of stuff appearing on the site.
Well, or if we did, it's been, hopefully it's been completely obvious.
I've never seen it, but I also
I'm trying to think, and I can't think of anything.
I'm always signed in on the site, so I theoretically wouldn't see that. But you go to Gawker or any of those other like sort of like blog networks, and it's like you go to those sites and there's like these stories kind of embedded in there that are like that have say advertisement right at the top, but it still looks like site
they're
dress and
designed
style.
to camouflage.
Yeah.
Like that Agent Booty thing wasn't a paid thing.
No.
That was just like, hey, do you guys want to do this thing? It sounds like it might be fun.
Yeah.
Like, and money did not change hands. We were not sponsored by anybody.
Right.
On the other side of the fence, though, it's interesting to see the evolution of advertising. Like, if you care, if you want to know how the
way
bills
it's
get paid.
adapted.
Yeah, the way the bills get paid, the way we all collect paychecks.
Well, I will say, Giant Bomb, we have tried to do the subscription thing.
Yes.
Totally.
And that has allowed us to sidestep a lot of that stuff.
Definitely. But, I mean, you still make money off ads.
I don't know.
Not at all. Well, we don't get
There are ads. I don't know if we make money off them or not.
Like, we're in a weird situation. Just to be perfect, if we're going to be completely honest
Absolutely.
here, it's like when we run, our videos are really long, and we run into this situation where we have to, we look at like pre-roll ads, and it's like, do you even make the money back on the bandwidth cost for if somebody watches? If everybody watching this were to get a pre-roll ad, would we even make the money? Would we still lose money serving this thing? And then you factor in ad blockers,
right? So
and it's a sinking ship.
The one exception on the internet aside being giantbomb.com. No, but I stand corrected. Most sites,
it's still display,
of course, and the way that relationship. In terms of like a purely cosmetic point of view, like how ads sort of, have infiltrated websites. Like I know CNET has gone through so many different iterations of the way ads are presented. And, obviously I don't work in that department, so I just look at it from a sort of,
as a user almost.
As a user to the point where I'm like, oh, wow, so now they're going to have that above the fold. And,
I mean, what I can tell you from talking to various ad salespeople at various media companies, the traditional method of selling ads on the internet has all but dried up.
Right. And another big thing when it comes to video games specifically is a lot of these sites now have issues where the endemic advertisers.
That's like video game publishers and console makers, what have you.
Whatever industry you're in.
Yeah.
Those guys are sort of going towards the point of view where it's like, why are we doing this?
You guys are going to talk about this anyway.
You guys are going to sell our game. When I say sell it, I don't mean hawk it.
You're going to talk about it.
You're going to talk about it anyway.
Halo 5. You're going to play Halo 5. You're going to show it to people.
I don't need to put an ad up on the Destiny review page.
Right. Why would I put a Halo 5 ad on your website? Anybody who comes there fucking knows Halo 5 is going to
really. So some of that stuff is even going a step further, where publishers and companies are hiring their own media teams. And I don't mean like people to go out and create like trailers or whatever. I mean literally they're hiring people who have done games coverage to write blogs on their site. They have their own editorial team. Like fucking League of Legends. Like the Riot at this point has basically hired half of the game's writers that I remember working like 5 years ago.
So that stuff. And it becomes relevant because I feel like publisher and like I'm not trying to cast them as some like Mordor
But no, things are just changing. That's
like they're not evil. They're trying to do their job.
Yeah,
and
they're trying to find more effective ways to get it out there.
And one of those effective ways is to have this thing that they call authenticity come through in the people that are like YouTube people being like, this looks like an authentic thing. Like this guy reaches an audience that looks authentic. If we can get him to say he likes our game, it'll penetrate. It'll resonate more.
Are you real enough?
Are you real? He really likes? He wouldn't lie.
If media was a video game, the authenticity character trait would be the one you want maxed out the most.
You min-max that. Yeah. And that stuff is scary. A lot of other people
for a lot of reasons, right? Like if you're a 19-year-old YouTuber, let's say you're not part of a maker network or one of the other Machinima or one of the other networks,
just doing it on your own, but you have a following. Like you don't have any, like no one's going to come to me and offer me anything. I don't deal with ads. I can't get an ad placed on the site. They have to deal with our ad people.
And in our position, we actually are in a position of privilege where we will get people coming to us and be like, "Are you cool with this?"
Totally, but I mean like an advertiser. Microsoft is never going to come to me and say, Austin, Do you want to run ads on the
Directly.
site? Like, I don't do that.
And if they ever
at all.
tried to do that, they know they'd get yelled at.
Yeah.
But the most you'll get is somebody within our company coming to you and be like, "Hey, we were approached. Is this
Right.
cool with you? Yes or no?"
Totally.
And that's actually great.
It
But
is
with
great.
the YouTuber,
They don't have that protection, and also they're struggling to make it. They probably invested a ton of money in getting
Games
it
are
set up right.
expensive.
Games are $60,
Yeah.
$70 in Canada.
it's like hard enough to get publishers to notice you and pay attention to you and
so
want
if
you
someone
to
just
talk
says,
about
like,
their
hey,
stuff.
Here's a free copy of the game and like a little extra money for you just to like make sure you have your setup right or whatever. It's like it's not easy. It's easy to understand why that person goes like, yeah, that sounds like an alright deal. I'll check this game out. I'll be honest with it, totally. But like you still might want to disclose that stuff.
And like we reached the point where this stuff has swung around a couple of times where you want your editorial team in a traditional editorial establishment to not have to have a personal investment in the game. And the best way to do that is to give them free product, right? It's to have access to free product. They didn't go spend their own personal money on it.
Right.
And that's kind of swung back and forth both ways. The criticisms have been like, oh, you don't understand the value because you got it for free, or you're personally invested in this thing. So like you spent $60, you want it to be good, you might change the things. Those things kind of go back and forth a little bit.
I've always taken umbrage with that second one.
Which
because
one?
the you paid $60 for it, so therefore you want it to be good. I've always been of the mind, and maybe this is just because I'm a slightly more vengeful human being, but if I pay $60 for a game and I don't like it, I am more likely to be like pissed the fuck off than I am to be like, no, this was okay, it was all right.
But I think one can make the argument that the purest way to do it is to just hand somebody a game and say, evaluate this on its merit,
And then destroy it.
and then destroy it, and then put it. Don't put it in your personal library. And so like that stuff is weird also for people who are trying to do it on their own. Like, you got to pay if you're going to try and do a game every day and spend $60 on a game every day, you're going to be in debt. Like you just can't do it.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. And like we do, we have a quick look probably go up a day a week. So that's we had to pay out of pocket for it.
And granted, not all those cost $60, but still.
No, yeah. And like, I pay for games. Sometimes I expense them, sometimes I don't. It usually winds up being like, is this a game I'm going to keep playing?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I would have bought this anyway.
Is this purely for work? Then
Yeah. Like I just spent $60 on Metal Gear and then spent $60 on Until Dawn. And it's like, I have no reason to play these for work. Like these are totally games that I'm just going to go buy on my own.
Right.
Yep.
And it's not like, we get codes sometimes, but it's not like we log into like freecodes.com unless you have a Steam Press account. And then you're pretty much.
And those are done, basically.
And those
Yeah.
ended like 5 years
I don't
ago.
want to talk about that.
Did you not get one?
Did you miss your opportunity?
Hey, I didn't get one either.
Me either.
No, when I first
Jeff.
started doing this, it crossed my desk and I just
You didn't fill out the paperwork?
didn't understand what I was getting. I was
Well, I mean, to be fair,
nascent.
back then, the Steam marketplace was not the thing that it is now.
Thank you for defending my stupidity.
so did you just
Alex.
not reply? What happened?
I just was like, I kind of was just like, oh, don't worry about it. I was like, I'm good,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
lo
I
and
was,
behold.
This was like 2006 or 7.
Right. Different
Okay.
time.
And it was
Times
good.
change, people change.
And it changed pretty quickly. It was like 2000. It was about 2008 when that stuff just got locked
yeah,
up.
and I just remember being like, fuck.
So anybody listening to this, that access I have, as I understand it, is gone.
And
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who have them, and they're bastards.
They are. Don't you just want to like smack them in the face a couple of times?
I just want to like change their password and like just stop
Whatever,
them.
man. Can't play Mario Maker with a Steam Press
There you
account,
go.
so they
Fucking
are
straight.
missing out.
And there'll be a great reckoning someday where the tabs is going to come.
Yeah.
Just be like, all right, pay up. We were just kidding.
That's it.
If you disclose your bills.
yeah, 20 years interest. What's up?
So we are in a slightly different situation in this room where some of that FTC stuff. Allison, you were looking at this before. If you're an outlet.
It's weird.
If you're doing it for a living in an outlet, you don't necessarily have to make the same kind of disclosures as if you're doing it, quote unquote, as a hobby or personally on the site. There's an assumption that since you're in print or you're doing it for an outlet, that this is you have received product, that you have this relationship with these people.
Well, it's sort of like they're treating it like the other side is more like endorsement style deals. Like they're trying to figure out, are you endorsing this product? And if so, because you're not an established media personality, you therefore have to apply to all these other endorsement rules that like they put on every fucking reverse mortgage like commercial that Montel Williams is on. It's like he is a paid endorser. He is there hawking this thing because we paid him to.
And we saw this recently with was it Instagram with Kim Kardashian
Yeah.
and the
drug, yeah.
the
What was
morning sickness stuff, where it looked like it was the pseudo personal endorsement that was like worded like a press release.
Yeah.
Like Instagram is its whole other,
Right.
especially celebrity Instagram. Like that is a whole
Doesn't
other
your
thing.
kind of heart go out a little bit for the FTC, where you're just like, I'm sorry, you guys. This is
How you gonna?
And you've got like
Hey.
companies out there like hawking celebrity Twitter accounts, being like, "Hey, if you want them to say something about this product, pay us the X number of dollars, and they will send out a tweet at this date on this time saying like." It's basically just ad copy.
And there was a thing in the fact from the FTC about like how do I navigate these waters? I want to try and do the right thing. Where they were just like, yeah, if you're getting paid, and like I see a guy there rubbing his temples as he's kind of answering these, and then like the thing is like, hey, I got paid to like stuff on Facebook. How do I disclose that? And just like
It's
the
just
answer,
like some Charles Grodin looking motherfucker,
yeah,
just like
rubbing
frazzled
his
beyond
temple, just
belief.
being
Like,
I know there's no way for you to do that.
It's
and,
shitty that they set up that deal because they knew you couldn't really disclose.
so like just and like literally the answer is something like it just sucks that they did that.
Yeah.
Like I
This
don't
is
really
just
know what to
bullshit.
tell you.
Just
Next
trying to make
question.
a-
Well, that's the thing. It's like kind of, it's uncharted territory, a lot of this stuff. And that's kind of fun, though. I know there's negative byproducts.
Hey, the Wild
result-
West was fun until you got shot, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Like that stuff, worked its way out. And I eventually, I don't know if we ever will get a good, firm grasp on
Well, it's
all
always
this.
it's
Just
a moving,
changing too
The
much.
ground is sand
Yeah,
here. It's moving all over the
totally.
place because
Moving target.
we talk about like, oh well, if you work for an outlet, then of course you get product. But like the YouTubers, that's their life, that's their livelihood, also, right? It's like how many more years is it going to be until we're saying like, well, you're a YouTuber, of course you get free product. That's just the way it works. Like when does the target shift further there? And then we're talking only about people who don't have contracts with Maker,
Right, but that's
You know what I
essentially
mean?
describing like the evolution of media
Totally.
offline.
Totally.
In the
Yeah.
way, so like that's just saying, and I agree to some degree where it's like, yeah, it'll just the dust will settle,
Stuff
the
will
good shit
shift.
rises to the top.
I remember when only the newspapers and the magazines had access to
Right.
pre-release media.
Totally.
Oh yeah, for games coverage even.
Well, I mean for
Yeah.
everything, but
Remember the print only rooms, and
Yeah.
then you go to an event, and you're like, what are they seeing? They get the lead time.
they get to see the shit that
They're
we don't
legit.
get to see because they have the better embargo.
They've got like physical machines that have to put type onto a paper.
You got to kill trees.
You have to wait for ink to dry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this stuff is, we come on the heels of, a lot of talk about like what is journalism, what is ethics and journalism, disclosure, all this stuff is like on the heels. And I don't even have my tongue in my cheek on this. This is like, these are real discussions that are happening.
Sure.
And this stuff is right in the middle of it. And this is the actual legal ramifications.
Or
of some of this
it ought to be if it's not.
well, like this is law happening, right?
Yeah.
This is like you have something like this happens, and whether or not the fines are a slap in the wrist or a kiss on the wrist or whatever you want to call this, it sets precedent for cases to be brought against other people.
Why would you kiss a wrist? That doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. What would you? Well, if you're not
Weird.
slapping it, or you're
It's like
spitting on it.
you kiss the hand. You don't kiss the wrist. It's,
top
kiss
of
the
the
hand.
kiss the ring. You know,
It's-
it's
That's
I don't
bite.
know.
You bite the hand that feeds you.
Yeah.
You don't
very
kiss the
sensual.
you don't bite the
Should
wrist
be,
either.
but-
A kiss on the wrist is just super sensual. It's just like
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
Hey,
Hey, Microsoft.
it's a very vulnerable part of your
I
body.
want to tongue my wrist.
No.
Just like
That was too far.
That's
And he's doing it.
It's right here.
Oh, ladies and
his
gentlemen.
eyes are rolling in the back of his head, which is
He's doing it. I see so many of his teeth.
you need to disclose.
I have several.
You need to disclose before you do that.
Yeah.
So that stuff, I think it sets precedent for what can be brought as a lawsuit, or like people are like, "Hey,
It at least starts you down that
I will
path.
cite U.S. FTC versus
Machinima.
Machinima.
U.S. versus Machinima is maybe the dumbest legal case name.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. When Xbox One launched, wasn't there like some sort of exclusivity with like Machinima having a channel on X? Like,
I don't
wasn't that a
remember.
thing too? I don't remember.
You're talking prehistoric days.
Yeah,
man.
that feels like
2013.
35 years ago at this point.
So all that being said, boy, we're in it. Like
Yeah, we're in it all right.
like stuff is all blurry all around. Like if you guys listening have any questions, like I think Giant Bomb here, like we hopefully will try and disclose.
Look, we're
as much
hunkered
as
down
we
in the
can.
shelter over here. We're at least, we have a periscope. We're watching what's happening in the world around us.
And
but
I think if you have questions, ask us. I think is the
Yeah.
greatest thing I think we can say about like we'll try and explain what's going on here. Email Jeff over at CNET.com. I'm sure
We got our own problems. Leave us alone.
Yeah. You guys are big. You guys are big and got a lot of fingers and a lot of pies.
This whole week is Apple stuff, which is its own thing. So.
Oh yeah, that's its own.
Just
ball of bees.
Yeah, I like balls of bees.
But like, we're
Bee wads.
I think it's funny to see the big companies trying to get more personality based, and then the personalities trying to become more like big time. So like you have this weird like everything's hitting in the middle where it's just like, well, that's one guy on YouTube, and that's 5 guys that could be on YouTube, but they're owned by a company.
Yeah.
So it's what's editorial in this space anymore? I don't know.
Well, I mean, this is what's happening. I mean, this has been ongoing for a while, and it's also kind of the thing that Giant Bomb was founded on. But like, the commoditization of personality, like that's something that's been going for years and years since like television and before all that. But like now, it's like everyone can do it, and everyone's trying to figure out what personalities can we harvest for our goods and our wares. How can we present them to the world and make maximum dollars off this person's personality.
How do you monetize this personality?
Yeah. Yep. It's the nightmare world that even Andy Warhol could not dare imagine.
Yeah, totally.
And it is no lie to say that is very attractive to advertisers. Like the kind of
authenticity rating.
When we do the podcast ads on the show, it is because it is they pay for it because we're reading it. Like, that's the money.
And because we have a rapport with the listener and that we are disarming. People know our voices. People already feel familiar with us and comfortable.
And they know I love anime.
Gotta keep some of that behind the curtain. We gotta make them be able to do something for us one day, right?
Yeah.
No, wait, we're becoming the most authentic.
Right, this is the thing. Is like this only makes us more attractive to advertisers.
This is like
our transparency. Shit.
This is like all those like weird like
oh my God,
fight the system and then you become like
this is the capitalist feedback loop that you can never escape.
Wait a minute, we were just incepted.
Yeah. Fuck.
Our next advertiser is going to be like, just get on there and tear us apart. Just tell us how rotten we are. Yeah, the needles moved so high when you got out there and ripped out the advertising industry.
Just hey there, Patrick man. Was talking about on the panel. He was saying like likes, dislikes, it doesn't matter. All that matters is engagement.
This is the wolf. Let me tell you how it really is.
Yeah, sponsored by. And then that's our Black Mirror portion of the show.
Yeah. Nice. Well, we have to have one every week. So there we go. There it is.
Let's quickly. I think we
get a couple of questions going here.
We did talk about FTC stuff. We did talk about. Let's talk a little bit quickly here.
We going back to sports.
We're going to go into emails.